Welcome back to Lifelong Echoes. Today we're mastering English through the mind-bending story of Stephen Hawking. But this isn't just about a brilliant scientist. This is about a man who was given 2 years to live at age 21, gradually lost the ability to move every muscle in his body, couldn't speak for the last 40 years of his life, yet became the most famous scientist since Einstein and unlocked the secrets of black holes. Imagine, you're a promising young student at Cambridge when doctors tell you that you have a rare disease that will slowly paralyze your entire body. You have 2 years left. 2 years. What do? Give up? Feel sorry for yourself? Stephen Hawking did the opposite. He got married, had 3 children, wrote best-selling books, appeared on The Simpsons, and revolutionized physics, all while trapped in a wheelchair, speaking through a computer voice. Here's how today's shadowing works. I'm going to tell this story at a slower, clear pace perfect for shadowing. Your job is simple. Speak along with me throughout the entire story, matching my rhythm and emotion. Shadow the whole story as you listen. That's it. Ready? Let's explore one of the most extraordinary minds in human history. January 1963, Oxford, England. 21-year-old Stephen Hawking is ice skating on a frozen lake when suddenly his legs give out beneath him. He falls hard on the ice. His friends laugh, thinking he's clumsy. But Stephen knows something is wrong. Over the next few weeks, his symptoms get worse. His hands shake when he tries to write. He trips over his own feet. His speech becomes slurred. His worried parents take him to a doctor. After weeks of painful tests, doctors deliver devastating news. Stephen has motor neuron disease, also called ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease. It's a condition where nerve cells controlling muscles gradually die. First, you lose control of your hands, then your legs, then your ability to speak, then your ability to swallow. Eventually, you can't even breathe on your own. The average life expectancy after diagnosis? 2 to 3 years. Stephen is 21 years old. He's just started his PhD in cosmology at Cambridge University. He wants to understand the universe. He wants to fall in love. He wants to live. And doctors are telling him he has maybe 2 years left. Stephen falls into a deep depression. Why bother studying physics if he's going to die before completing his degree? Why make plans? Why do anything at all? Then 2 things happen that change his perspective completely. First, he meets Jane Wilde at a New Year's party. She's intelligent, beautiful, and surprisingly, she isn't frightened by his diagnosis. They fall in love. Jane tells him, "I want us to get married. I want us to have a normal family life." Her belief in their future gives Stephen a reason to live. Second, Stephen sees a boy dying of leukemia in the hospital. The boy is 14 years old and will die within weeks. Stephen realizes, at least I have time. Maybe 2 years isn't much, but it's more than that boy has. I need to make the most of every day. Stephen proposes to Jane. They get married in July 1965. By this time, Stephen is using a cane to walk. But he's determined to live as normally as possible for whatever time he has left. The 2 years predicted by doctors pass. Stephen is still alive. His disease is progressing more slowly than expected. He decides to focus on something that will consume all his intellectual energy, understanding black holes and the origin of the universe. As Stephen's body slowly failed him, his mind soared to the edges of the universe. By the early 1970s, Stephen could no longer walk without help. He started using a wheelchair. His speech became more difficult to understand, though Jane and his close colleagues learned to interpret his slurred words. But physically, Stephen's limitations forced him to develop a unique way of doing physics. Most scientists fill blackboards with complex mathematical equations. Stephen couldn't write on blackboards anymore. So he developed an ability to visualize equations and solve problems entirely in his head, using geometric intuition rather than pages of calculations. His colleagues were amazed. Stephen would sit silently in seminars, his head tilted to one side, apparently sleeping. Then suddenly he would interrupt with a question or insight that went straight to the heart of the problem. While others needed paper and pencils, Stephen's mind had become his blackboard. In 1974, Stephen made a discovery that shocked the physics community. Everyone believed that black holes were perfect traps. Nothing, not even light, could escape them. But Stephen calculated that black holes actually emit radiation, slowly evaporating over billions of years. This Hawking radiation was revolutionary. It connected quantum mechanics, thermodynamics, and general relativity in a way no one had imagined. The physics community initially rejected his idea. It seemed impossible. Black holes emitting radiation? Absurd. But Stephen's mathematics were flawless. Within a few years, Hawking radiation became one of the most important discoveries in theoretical physics. Despite his growing fame, Stephen's home life was becoming increasingly difficult. Jane was caring for their 3 children, Robert, Lucy, and Timothy, while also caring for Stephen as his condition worsened. He needed help getting dressed, eating, and moving. Jane was exhausted, serving as wife, mother, and full-time caregiver. Then, in 1985, catastrophe struck. While traveling in Switzerland, Stephen contracted pneumonia. He was rushed to the hospital, struggling to breathe. Doctors performed a tracheotomy, cutting a hole in his throat and inserting a tube directly into his windpipe to help him breathe. The surgery saved Stephen's life, but it destroyed his ability to speak. The slurred speech that his family had learned to understand was gone. At age 43, Stephen Hawking lost his voice completely. Many people would have given up at this point. Paralyzed in a wheelchair, unable to speak, dependent on others for every basic need. But Stephen was just getting started. After losing his ability to speak, Stephen needed a new way to communicate. A computer programmer in California created a speech synthesizer program for him. Stephen could select words by moving his cheek muscle, and the computer would speak them aloud in a robotic American accent. That computerized voice became iconic. People around the world would instantly recognize Stephen Hawking by that distinctive robotic sound. When offered newer, more natural-sounding voices, Stephen refused. "That voice has become my identity," he said. People know me by it. In 1988, Stephen published A Brief History of Time, a book explaining cosmology and black holes to ordinary readers. Publishers worried that a book about physics would never sell. They were spectacularly wrong. A Brief History of Time became one of the most successful science books ever written. It stayed on the Sunday Times bestseller list for 237 weeks, more than 4 years. It sold more than 10 million copies and was translated into 40 languages. Stephen Hawking became a celebrity. But here's the fascinating part. Most people who bought the book didn't finish reading it. It was nicknamed the most unread bestseller of all time. Yet people bought it anyway because Stephen's story was so compelling. A man trapped in a wheelchair, unable to move or speak, explaining the mysteries of the universe through a computer. It was irresistible. Stephen embraced his celebrity status with humor and joy. He appeared on Star Trek: The Next Generation, playing poker with Albert Einstein and Isaac Newton. He guest starred on The Simpsons multiple times. He appeared in commercials, documentaries, and TV shows. He even recorded a disco version of the Monty Python song, Galaxy Song. Some serious scientists criticized him for being too much of a celebrity. Stephen didn't care. He believed that science should be accessible to everyone, not locked away in academic journals. My goal is simple, he said. It is a complete understanding of the universe, why it is as it is, and why it exists at all. And I want everyone to share in the wonder of that understanding. Despite his fame, Stephen continued his research. As his disease progressed, he lost the ability to move his cheek muscle. The only muscle he could still control was a single muscle in his eye. So his computer was adapted to track his eye movements. Stephen could now communicate only by selecting words with tiny eye twitches. It took him several minutes to compose a single sentence. Yet, he continued lecturing, writing papers, and thinking about the deepest questions in physics. What happened before the Big Bang? How did the universe begin? Is there life elsewhere in the cosmos? Stephen Hawking lived 55 years longer than doctors predicted. He didn't die at 23. He died on March 14, 2018, at age 76, ironically, on Albert Einstein's birthday and Pi Day. In those 55 extra years, Stephen revolutionized our understanding of black holes, wrote best-selling books, traveled the world giving lectures, experienced zero gravity on a special airplane flight, and inspired millions of people. He divorced Jane in 1995 and married his nurse, Elaine Mason. That marriage ended in divorce in 2006, and Stephen reconciled with Jane and their children. His personal life was complex and sometimes messy, but Stephen insisted on living fully despite his limitations. Stephen's children remembered him not as a tragic figure, but as a father who loved jokes, threw dinner parties, and encouraged them to question everything. His daughter Lucy became a science writer. His son Robert went into software engineering. His youngest son Timothy never knew his father as anything but a man in a wheelchair with a computer voice and loved him completely. When Stephen died, scientists around the world mourn the loss of one of history's greatest minds. His ashes were interred in Westminster Abbey, between the graves of Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin, three giants of science resting together. But Stephen's greatest legacy isn't his scientific discoveries. It's what he proved about human potential. He showed that the mind is independent of the body. That disability doesn't mean inability. That limitations are only obstacles if you accept them as such. Stephen once said, "However difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't just give up." He lived those words every single day for 55 years beyond his death sentence. His computer-generated voice fell silent, but his message echoes forever. Look up at the stars, not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be curious. And however difficult life may seem, remember that where there's life, there's hope. Incredible work. You just learned English through one of the most inspiring stories of human determination. Your homework: watch this video multiple times. First time, enjoy the story. Second time, shadow along with the entire narrative. Third time, focus on the emotional and scientific parts, speaking with wonder when describing his discoveries. Each time, your English and your inspiration grow stronger. Quick question: which moment moved you most? His engagement despite the diagnosis? Losing his voice but gaining worldwide fame? The eye-controlled computer? Living 55 years beyond his death sentence? Comment below. Remember, Stephen was trapped in his body, but his mind was free. You're developing your English voice, your mind learning to express itself in a new language. Every time you practice, you prove that determination overcomes obstacles. Hit subscribe for more incredible stories that supercharge your English. Next time, another extraordinary life, another English breakthrough. Keep shadowing, keep wondering, keep reaching for the stars.